Reg, hier val ons weg, hoofstuk 16, chapter 16. Dinge wat jy ontdek wanneer jy nie kan slaap nie. Things that you find out when you can't sleep. Ek kyk op my selfoon se horlosie. Dis 11:32 en ek kan nie slaap nie. Dalk moet ek probeer skape tel. Ek kan nie help om terug te dink aan daardie soen vanmiddag in die kraal nie. Dit was regtig net 'n piksoen en ek weet dit beteken nie veel nie. Daar was niks romanties daaraan nie. Ek kan dit wetenskaplik bewys. As 'n mens 'n stophorlosie sou gebruik het om dit te meet, het daardie soen waarskynlik presies net so lank aangehou soos die piksoen wat my ouma my vir Vrydagoggend gegee het toe sy my by ons huis kom oplaai het. Maar toe ons Lana vroeër vanaand terug gastehuis toe gevat het ek nog dan saam met haar tot by die hek gestap. Dit is regtig simpel, maar ek het gehoop dat dit weer sal gebeur, selfs al was dit net weer 'n piksoen. En selfs al het my ouma ons 10-1 gesit en dophou, maar Lana het net vir my ouma in die Land Rover gewaai, 'n oomblik lank met daardie vreemde glimlaggie vir my gekyk en gesê, "Lekker slaap, Luan Lou." Toe het sy vinnig ingestap. Right, so just remember from the previous chapter, they took some more photographs of Dolores. They had supper with what is it? I can't even remember that now. You're probably all shouting it. Jackson. And then they took Lana home, and he's just saying now that he's looking at his watch on his cell phone, and it's 11:30 at night, and he can't sleep. And he laughs and makes a little joke and says, perhaps I should start counting sheep. You can't help thinking back to early in the day when Lana gave him a little peck on the cheek. There wasn't really anything romantic about it, and he can prove it scientifically, because if you had to measure the time that it took her to kiss him on your stopwatch, it was probably about as long as it would take when his gran picked him up on that Friday morning and gave him a quick peck on the cheek. But earlier on that evening, when he was taking Lana back to the guest house, he walked with her to the gate. It really seems a bit stupid, but he was kind of hoping that it would happen again, that she would give him another peck on the cheek. Even though he probably realized that his gran was sitting in the Land Rover watching them. But Lana just waved his gran and then climbed and then walked into the guest house after she gave him a kind of strange smile, and then she said, "Sleep well, Luan Lo," and then she just walked inside. So, bladsy 89. Dalk is dit die stilte se skuld dat ek nie kan slaap nie. Dit is baie stiller hier as in die stad. Selfs al hoor ek my ouma en oom Jackson se gedempte stem in die kombuis en nou en dan die geblaar van 'n bok buite, laat die stilte dit voel soos wanneer 'n mens in 'n swembad afduik en roerloos in die water bly hang. Waaroor gesels my ouma en oom Jackson die tyd van die nag? Is ou mense nie veronderstel om vroeg te gaan slaap nie? Ek probeer my bes om nie te dink aan vanmiddag se foongesprek met Ryan nie. Hy het my nog nie weer probeer bel of 'n boodskap gestuur nie. Met 'n sug rol ek op my ander sy en staar na die streep maanlig wat deur 'n skreef tussen die gordyne val. My pa hulle verstaan nie hoekom met Ryan en te vriende is nie. Dit is nie hoe ons jou ken nie, Luan, het hy al meer as een keer die afgelope paar jaar of wat vir my gesê. Hy is heeltemal reg. Op laerskool was ek altyd die stil ouetjie wat pauses eenkant gesit het met 'n boek, of met my iPod in my ore, terwyl die ander ouens touch rugby speel of vir meisies of partytjies gesels. Ouma Alice is reg. Ek het opgewonde geraak oor goed soos 'n voelboek of Pokémon of my versameling action figures, maar dit het elke keer oorgewaai. Toe was daar 'n tyd toe ek ook probeer inpas het, rugby en tennis en hokkie gespeel het en na partytjies toe gegaan het, maar ek het steeds gevoel asof ek nêrens regtig inpas nie. But perhaps it's because of the silence that he can't get to sleep, because it's a lot quieter here on William Jackson's farm than he would have been if he was in the city. And even though you can hear his gran and Uncle Jackson soft voices coming from the kitchen, and every now and then you can hear a goat outside. The silence feels to him a bit like when you jump into a swimming pool and then you dive down and you stay motionless and you hang in the water and you can basically just not hear much. And he wonders what his gran and Jackson are talking about at this time of the night. Aren't old people supposed to go to sleep early? He tries his best not to think about the afternoon's conversation with Ryan, because Ryan hasn't tried to phone him again or try to give him a message. With a sigh, he rolls onto his other side and he stares at this stripe of moonlight coming in from a gap in the curtains. His mom and them don't really understand why he and Div and Ryan are friends. They always sort of say to me, it's not how we know you. And more than once in the last couple of years, they've said that to him. And his dad's probably right, because at primary school, he was always the quiet guy that during breaks would sit to one side reading a book or listening to his iPod. And when while the other guys were playing touch rugby or talking about girls and parties. But Oma Alice is right. He did used to get excited about things like a book about birds or Pokemon or his action figures. But every time it kind of like blew over. Then there was a time when he actually tried to fit in and he played rugby and tennis and hockey and he went to parties, but he still felt as though he didn't really belong anywhere. Skool is 'n legkaart. En die meeste mense kry maklik hulle plek in daai legkaart. Nie ek nie. Ek is een van daardie legkaartstukke wat nie pas nie. Of so het ek geglo, tot ek aan die begin van graad 8 vir Ryan en Div ontmoet het. Ryan is die laaste mens op aarde met wie ek gedink het ek pelle sou word. Hy speel vir die eerste span cricket. Meisies is mal oor hom. Hy is gewild en sy ouers het hoop geld. En alles sy skoolpunte nie juis goed nie, is hy slim ook. Partykeer dink ek daar skiet sulke elektriese vonke deur sy brein, want hy is altyd vol idees en planne. Div aan die ander kant is nou nie juis die grootste uitblinker in ons skool nie. Dinge gaan rof by sy huis. Sy skoolpunte is vrot en al sy skoolklere kom van die klerebank af. Maar hy is 'n goeie ou, soos 'n groot loyale hond, wat jou nooit in die steek sal laat nie. En ek? My pa sê ek luister te maklik na Ryan en doen alles wat hy sê. Dis hoekom ek deesdae so gereeld in die moeilikheid beland. Soos die keer toe ons amper die hele skool oortuig het om die snoepie te boykot omdat dit so duur is. Of die keer toe ons uitgevang is nadat ons vir Div 'n 6-pack bier vir sy verjaarsdag skool toe gebring het. Okay, top of page 91, just a quick recap. So school is a bit like a puzzle, Luan says, and most people find their way or their place quite easily in the puzzle, but not Luan. He's one of those puzzle pieces that just doesn't seem to fit, or so he believed, until at the beginning of grade 8 he met Ryan and Div. Ryan is the last person on earth that he thought he would become friends with. Plays first team cricket, girls are mad about him, he's very popular, and his parents have got loads of money. And even though his school marks aren't very good, he's also quite smart, he's clever. Sometimes Luan thinks that his brain has sort of these electrical impulses that shoot through his brain because he's always full of ideas and plans. This is Ryan. Div, on the other hand, isn't exactly the brightest kid in the school. Things are pretty tough at his house, or rough. His school marks are pretty poor, and all his school clothes come from the second-hand shop. But he's a good guy. He's like a big loyal dog that'll never leave you in the lurch. And me, says Luan, my dad says I am too quick to listen to Ryan and do everything that he says. That's why lately I seem to be in so much trouble, according to my dad, says Luan. Like the time that we almost convinced the whole school to boycott the tuck shop because it was so expensive. Or the time we were caught out because we brought a 6-pack to school for Div's birthday party. En dan was daar die kere toe ons nie uitgevang is nie. soos toe ons die skoolswembad se water net voor die swemgale rooi gekleur het. Of toe ons daardie foto van die LO-onnie meneer Visser en die wiskunde-onnie juffrou Meyer op die skool se Facebook groep gesit het, onder 'n vals naam natuurlik. Teen daardie tyd het die hele skool bydien al geweet van die stories dat Vissie sy vrou met die wiskunde juffrou verneek. Vandat ek Ryan en Div ontmoet het, voel dit vir die eerste keer asof ek iewers inpas. Ek dink nie dis iets wat my pa verstaan nie. Hy het nog sy hele lewe lank ingepas. Ryan dink anders oor dinge. Om met hom pelle te wees, voel partykeer soos om 'n handgranaat te hê wat jy in jou hangkas wegsteek. Dis 'n rush. Hy laat my en Div altyd deel voel van sy planne. Die res van die skool weet al ons drie is altyd saam. Ryan, Luan en Div. Dis hoekom ek nie kan glo hy val vir my pa se plan nie. Hoe kan hy dit aan Div doen? My selfoon piep waarskuwend, die battery is pap. Ek kan dit seker tot môreoggend los, maar is opwindend om te kyk hoeveel aanhangers Depro skape gekry het. En dalk sukkel Lana ook om te slaap en sit sy iewers in die nag nog foto's op. Die houtvloer is koud onder my kaal voete toe ek opstaan. Okay, there were some times when Luan, Ryan and Div weren't caught out. Like the time that they colored the swimming pool water red before a swimming gala. Or like the time they posted a photograph of the PT teacher, Mr. Visser, and the maths teacher, Juffrou Meyer, on the school's Facebook page, or Facebook group, under a false name, of course. And at that stage, the whole school knew that the stories about Fissy, the PT teacher, who was cheating on his wife with the maths teacher. Pretty scandalous by the sounds of things. But ever since he met Ryan and Div, it feels as though he fits in for the first time. He doesn't think it's something that his dad can understand. He's always fitted in his whole life. So his dad's always been popular and got on with people. He's now a lawyer, so he's really got a good life. But Ryan thinks differently about things. To be friends with Ryan sometimes feels like you've got a hand grenade that's you've hidden away in your cupboard. It's like a rush. He lets Luan and Div always feel part of his plans. And the rest of the school knows that the three of them are always together. It's the Ryan, Luan and Div show. That's why I can't believe that Ryan fell for his father's plan, Luan's father's plans. How can they do this to Div? Div is their loyal friend and now they are making him take the blame for what they did. His cell phone gives a warning beep and he realizes that the battery is probably almost flat. He thinks he can probably leave it until tomorrow morning, but it's quite exciting to see how many followers Deborah Sheep has got. And perhaps Lana is also struggling to sleep and maybe she's sitting somewhere in the night and putting more photographs of Dolores on the Instagram. The wood floor is quite cold under my feet as I stand up. It's Luan speaking. Ek trap versigtig sodat die vloerplanke nie te veel kraak nie en maak my deur saggies oop. Ek kan nie hoor waaroor my ouma en oom Jackson gesels nie, maar aan die sagte gebrom van stemme uit die kombuis kan ek hoor hulle het nog steeds nie gaan slaap nie. Die kamer waarin my ouma slaap is reg oor myne. Ek skakel die lig aan. Haar handsak lê op die speeltafel voor die bed. Hooplik gee sy nie om dat ek daarin rondsoek nie. Dis darm nie asof ek haar geld sal probeer steel of iets nie. Ek is immers net 'n skaapdief. Gelukkig sien ek dadelik die selfoonlaaier toe ek haar handsak oopmaak. Maar net toe ek wil omdraai en uitstap, vang iets my oog. 'n Boekie met 'n blou leeromslag. Dit lyk soos 'n klein fotoalbum. My nuuskierigheid kry die oorhand en ek haal dit uit. My hart mis 'n slag toe ek dit oopslaan. Ek was reg. Dit is 'n dun fotoalbum. 'n Mens kan sien die foto's is al 'n paar jaar gelede geneem. My ouma lyk heel wat jonger daarop. Op een foto leun sy teen 'n plaashek en kyk dromerig oor die veld. Op 'n ander foto glimlag sy oor haar skouer vir die kamera terwyl sy 'n boklam met 'n tietbottel melk voer. Oom Jackson lyk ook 'n paar jaar jonger op die foto's. Hy het spierwit hare weerskante van sy bles en sy skouers is regopper. Daar is 'n foto waar hy besig is om te skilder op dieselfde stoepie waar hy vanmiddag gewerk het toe ons hier aangekom het. Just going back to the top of page 93. So Luan treads carefully on the floor planks, the wooden floor. So and he opens the door very quietly because he doesn't want it to creak. He can't really hear what his Gran and Oom Jackson are talking about, but from the soft mumblings of voices from the kitchen, he knows they're still busy and they haven't gone to sleep. The room in which his Gran is sleeping is right across from Luan's, and he switches on the light. Her handbag is on the mirror on the dressing table in front of the bed, or in front of the bed. It's not as though he's going to try and steal her money or anything like that. In any case, he's just a sheep thief. But fortunately, he immediately sees the cell phone charger when he opened up her handbag. But just when he was about to turn around and walk out, something else caught his eye. A book with a blue leather cover. It looked like a small photo album, and his inquisitiveness got the best of him, and he took it out. His heart nearly missed a beat as he opened it. He was right. It is a thin photo album. You can see that the photographs were taken a few years ago. His Gran looks quite a bit younger in the photos, and in one photograph she's leaning on a farm gate and she's looking dreamily over the field. On another photograph she's smiling over her shoulder at the camera while she's giving a baby goat some milk. Uncle Jackson also looks quite a few years younger on the photographs. He's got pure white hair on both sides of his bald spot, and his shoulders are a lot more upright. And there's also a photograph in which he's busy to paint, on exactly the same stoep where he met them that afternoon. Right, page 94. Op 'n ander foto stap hy in die veld met 'n rugsak oor sy een skouer gehaak. Maar is die laaste 3 foto's in die album wat regtig my maag laat saamtrek. My ouma en oom Jackson is saam daarop. Dit lyk of my ouma die kamera met haar een hand vashou terwyl hulle vir die foto poseer. 'n Tipiese ou mens selfie. Die manier waarop sy vir oom Jackson glimlag, laat my nog meer skuldig voel omdat ek die album oopgemaak het. Op die heel laaste foto soen oom Jackson haar in haar nek en sy lag met haar kop agteroor gegooi. 'n Vloerplank kraak met eens agter my. Ek wip soos ek skrik en swaai om. My ouma kyk na die fotoalbum in my hande. Dit is moeilik om te raai wat sy dink. Ek het net die charger kom soek, sê ek, verskonend en hou die selfoonlaai aan die lig. Woordeloos vat sy die fotoalbum by my. Nag, Luan. Toe ek uitstap, trek sy die deur agter my toe. That's a bit of a reveal here for Luan. In one of the other photographs, Oom Jackson is walking in the field with a rucksack over his shoulder. But it's the last 3 photographs in the album that really give Luan kind of like a strange feeling in his stomach. His Gran and Oom Jackson are together on the photographs. It looks as though his Gran was holding the camera with one hand while they were posing for the photograph. A typical old person's selfie. And the way in which he's smiling at Jackson made him feel even more guilty that he'd opened this album. And on the very last photograph, Oom Jackson is kissing his Gran in her neck, and she's sort of laughing with her head back, thrown backwards. Then a floor plank creaks behind him, and he gets his fright, and he turns around, and he swings around, and his Gran looks at the photo album in his hands. It's difficult to guess what she's thinking, and he quickly says, "Look, I just came to fetch the charger." He says very apologetically, and he holds the cell phone charger up in the air. Wordlessly, she takes the photo album from Luan and she says, "Good night, Luan." As he walked out, she pulled the door closed behind him. That's the end of chapter 16.